car really belong to?
It's mine. I just got
You
off a
doctors
12
think
hour.
you're above the law, huh?
I work at St. Mary's. I'm
Don't
on
lie
call.
to me.
I came home to
Don't lie to me. Cars like that don't come from night shifts.
It's leased. My name is on the title. You can
Step all the way out here, now.
I'm outside. I'm just...
This story starts with a knock on a front door, and it ends with a police officer in prison, a federal conviction on record, and a department forced to change how it operates. But when this doorbell camera turns on, none of that exists yet. There is no investigation, no arrest, no fear of consequences, only authority, and the belief that it won't be questioned. It's 11:28 p.m. on a Thursday night in Seattle. The building is quiet. Not city quiet, real quiet, the kind where every sound carries. Inside apartment 312, a woman is asleep, not lightly, not drifting. The kind of sleep that only comes after complete exhaustion. Her name is Danielle Moore, and she has been asleep for less than 2 hours. Then it happens. A violent pounding of fists against the door. Not a knock, not a tap. Boom, boom, boom. The sound slams through the hallway and into her chest. Danielle's eyes snap open. Her heart is already racing before her brain catches up. Training kicks in first. She doesn't panic, she assesses. Because Danielle Moore has spent 15 years in emergency medicine. She has learned the difference between noise and danger. She checks her phone. 11:28 p.m. Her chest tightens. She worked a 16-hour shift at Seattle Grace Medical Center, ICU overflow. 2 trauma cases that ran past shift change, 1 patient coded twice. She got home at 9:15, showered, ate leftover pasta standing at the counter, collapsed into bed at 9:45. She has been asleep for 1 hour and 43 minutes. The pounding comes again, louder, more aggressive. Police, open the door. Danielle sits up slowly. She doesn't move toward the door yet. That matters, because people who survive dangerous situations don't rush toward the noise. They listen. The hallway is silent except for the pounding. No voices, no arguing neighbors, no music, nothing that sounds like a disturbance. Danielle slides out of bed. She's still in pajamas, a t-shirt and cotton pants, bare feet on cold laminate. As she walks toward the door, her mind runs through possibilities. Wrong apartment, medical emergency in the building, someone else in trouble? She didn't do anything wrong. She literally just came home from saving lives. She stops at the door, and she looks through the peephole. A police officer stands in the hallway, full uniform. But something is off. His posture isn't neutral. His weight is forward. His hand hovers too close to his weapon. He looks angry. Not alert, not concerned, angry. Danielle doesn't open the door. Instead, she speaks clearly through it. What is this about? We got a call about a disturbance. You need to step outside. The words land flat, rehearsed, empty. A disturbance? Danielle asks through the door. I've been asleep. I just got home from a double shift at the hospital. There's no acknowledgement, no adjustment, no curiosity, just pressure. Open the door, the officer says. Now. Danielle stays where she is. Her hand rests lightly on the door frame, not touching the lock, not committing to anything. Her heart is beating faster now, but her voice stays level. That's a skill. One she learned long before this night. Officer, I need to know what this is about, she says. What disturbance was reported? Silence. Then the sound of a radio crackling softly on the other side of the door. That's when Danielle knows something is wrong. Because this isn't how legitimate calls sound. This isn't how officers explain presence. This isn't how situations de-escalate. The officer shifts his weight. She can hear it. A subtle scrape of a boot against the floor. Ma'am, he says slower now, if you don't open this door, you're obstructing. Obstructing what? Danielle asks. You haven't told me anything. The tone sharpens immediately. Last warning, open the door or you're getting arrested. The threat hangs there. Heavy. Danielle closes her eyes for half a second, and she's heard this tone before. Not from police, from violent patients, from people who use authority or strength when they're losing control of the situation. She opens her eyes and moves, not toward the door, toward her phone. She taps the screen again, confirming the audio recording is still running. Then she opens the doorbell camera feed one more time, making sure it's still live. The image is steady, the officer is still there, still close, still tense, still unaware. Danielle raises her voice slightly so the recording captures every word. "Officer, can you tell me your name and badge number?" "You don't need my name," he snaps. "You need to open the door." Danielle feels a chill move through her. That answer alone tells her everything. "Washington state law gives me the right to know who is making contact with me," she says. "Please identify yourself." The hallway goes quiet. Then the officer's voice drops. Lower, closer, more dangerous. "If you don't open this door in 5 seconds, I'm going to assume you're destroying evidence and I'm coming in." Danielle's pulse spikes. Evidence of what? She hasn't moved anything. She hasn't touched anything. She's been asleep. Her instincts are screaming now. This is not about noise. This is not about safety. This is about forcing a door open. She doesn't argue. She dials 911. The line connects instantly. "911, what's your emergency?" "This is Danielle Moore," she says clearly. "I'm at the Meridian Apartments, apartment 312. There is a police officer at my door threatening to break it down. He claims there was a disturbance call, but I was asleep. He refuses to identify himself. Can you verify whether there was a call to my address?" The pounding stops. Completely. The silence on the other side of the door is sudden and unsettling. Danielle stays on the line. Seconds pass, then the dispatcher comes back. "Ma'am, I'm not showing any disturbance calls to your address tonight." Danielle's stomach drops, because now there is no confusion. "There was no call," she says, more to herself than anyone else. "Stay on the line," the dispatcher says. "I'm connecting you with a supervisor." A new voice comes through. "This is Sergeant Williams with Seattle Police. Can you tell me what's happening?" Danielle explains everything. The pounding, the threats, the refusal to identify, the fake disturbance claim. Sergeant Williams doesn't interrupt. When she finishes, he speaks carefully. "I want you to ask the officer for his name and badge number again. I'm staying on the line." Danielle turns back toward the door. "Officer," she calls out, "I have Sergeant Williams with Seattle Police on the phone right now. He's asking for your identification." A long pause. Then the officer answers. "This is Officer Bradley Mitchell, badge number 7429. His voice is different now, unsteady. Danielle repeats it into the phone. Then Sergeant Williams says something that makes Danielle's chest tighten. "Miss Moore, Officer Mitchell is not assigned to your area tonight. He is not supposed to be at your address. Do not open your door. I'm sending units to you now." Danielle grips her phone, because now the danger has a shape. She looks back at the doorbell camera feed and watches Officer Mitchell step away from her door. Fast. Not calm, not professional, fast. He walks down the hallway, his face fully visible, shoulders tense, pace quickening as he disappears around the corner. Danielle exhales for the first time in minutes. She stays on the line. Within 6 minutes, multiple police cars arrive outside the building. She watches through the camera feed as officers enter the lobby. Then comes another knock. This one is different. Measured, controlled. "Miss Moore," a voice calls. "This is Sergeant Williams. I'm here with officers. Please look through the peephole and verify." Danielle does. 4 officers stand in the hallway, name tags visible, hands away from weapons. Sergeant Williams holds up his badge to the peephole. Danielle opens the door. Sergeant Williams is calm, composed, older. The kind of presence that lowers the temperature of a room instead of raising it. "I'm sorry," he says immediately. "Can you tell me everything from the beginning?" Danielle does. She walks them through the entire encounter. The threats, the refusal, the fake call. She hands over her phone. The audio recording, the doorbell footage. Sergeant Williams watches the video. His expression tightens. "This is serious," he says quietly. Ryan steps out of his apartment across the hall. "I have it on my camera too," he says. "Different angle, same threats. There was no disturbance." Sergeant Williams nods. He takes notes. collects contact information. Then he asks Danielle a question that confirms just how bad this is. Have you ever seen this officer before tonight? No, Danielle says immediately. Never. Sergeant Williams exhales slowly. Miss Moore, he says, an officer not assigned to this area came to your door with no call for service, refused to identify himself, and threatened forced entry. He looks her directly in the eyes. That's not procedure. That's not legal. Danielle swallows. The officers leave after advising her to lock up and call if she hears anything else. Danielle locks her door, checks every window, and doesn't sleep for the rest of the night. At 8:12 a.m., her phone rings. Ms. Moore, the voice says, this is Detective Alvarez with Seattle Police. I need to speak with you about last night. Danielle sits up. I was expecting internal affairs, she says. This is bigger than internal affairs, Alvarez replies, and I'm going to be honest with you. There's a pause. Officer Mitchell has been on our radar. Danielle's stomach tightens. For what? She asks. For showing up at women's homes late at night, Alvarez says, always alone, always aggressive, always claiming vague calls we can't confirm. Danielle closes her eyes. How many? She asks. Alvarez exhales. Enough that we were already watching him, he says, but we didn't have what we needed. Danielle opens her eyes. And now you do? Yes, Alvarez says quietly. Now we do? He asks her to come in and give a formal statement. Danielle doesn't hesitate. Yes, she says, because she understands something very clearly now. If she doesn't speak, this will happen again, and next time the door might open. Danielle doesn't wait for fear to catch up to her. By 10:30 a.m., she's downtown, sitting in a small interview room that smells faintly of coffee and disinfectant. Detective Alvarez sits across from her, recorder on the table, legal pad open, posture forward. This isn't internal affairs. This is criminal. State your full name for the record, Alvarez says. Danielle Moore. And describe everything that happened last night from the moment you were awakened. Danielle does exactly that. Not emotionally, not dramatically, clinically, at times exact words, threats, tone. She speaks the way she charts trauma cases, because that's what this was. Alvarez doesn't interrupt once. When she finishes, he slides her phone back across the table. That doorbell footage, he says, is the cleanest evidence we've seen. Danielle's jaw tightens. Scene of what? Alvarez leans back slightly. Of a pattern. He explains it carefully. 6 months earlier, a woman filed a report with the department's sexual assault unit. She said a police officer came to her apartment late at night, claimed there was a disturbance call, pressured her to open the door, and forced his way inside. She reported it immediately, but she couldn't identify the officer. He never fully showed his badge, never gave his name, kept his body turned away. 2 more women came forward after that. Same story, different apartments, different neighborhoods, same tactic, late night, alone. Vague call that dispatch couldn't verify. All 3 women were terrified. All 3 gave statements anonymously. None felt safe enough to testify. Internal affairs couldn't move forward without a named suspect. Until Danielle. Your footage shows his face clearly, Alvarez says. His voice, his threats, his badge number, and the fact that he wasn't assigned to your area. Danielle feels the weight of it settle. If I had opened the door, Alvarez cuts in gently. We don't speculate, he says, but yes, you were very close. Within 48 hours, warrants are signed for Mitchell's patrol car computer, his department-issued phone, his personal devices, his database access logs. Danielle isn't told everything right away, but she hears enough. Database searches that don't align with active cases, repeated lookups of women living alone, addresses, ages, schedules, GPS logs showing his patrol car parked near those addresses, off duty, late at night. When Alvarez calls her again, his voice is different, not investigative, heavy. We found recordings, he says. Danielle goes quiet. Recordings of what? She asks. Alvarez pauses. Of assaults, he says, we're notifying victims. Danielle feels sick. She thinks back to the threat. Open this door or I'm breaking it down. And for the first time, she understands how close she came. Bradley Mitchell is arrested the following Monday morning, handcuffed in front of his house, charged with multiple counts of rape, burglary with sexual motivation, stalking, official misconduct, abuse of authority. The story explodes. Local news, national outlets, comment sections on fire. But this isn't a debate story. The evidence is overwhelming. Danielle is asked to testify as she says yes immediately. Not because she wants attention, because she knows what silence protects. In court, the doorbell footage plays on a large screen. Jurors watch Mitchell threaten a closed door, watch his posture, hear his tone. They hear Danielle's voice, calm, controlled, refusing to be intimidated. They hear the moment the threat turns into a countdown, and they see the exact second Mitchell realizes he's been caught. Other victims testify, tears, shaking hands, years of fear spilling into the open. Danielle sits behind them every day, not as a victim, but as proof. The verdict comes faster than anyone expects. Guilty. On all major counts. The judge doesn't soften the sentence, 38 years. The courtroom is silent when it's read, and no cheers, no gasps, just relief. Danielle doesn't speak at sentencing. She doesn't need to. The footage already did. Weeks later, Danielle files a federal civil rights lawsuit, not for revenge, for accountability. Her claim is simple. The department had warnings. Patterns existed. Policies failed. The city fights it, briefly. Then the emails surface, the logs, the missed flags. The jury doesn't deliberate long. They rule in her favor on every count. Damages. $575,000, but the judge goes further. Mandatory reforms, independent oversight, automatic database flags, body cameras required for all civilian contact. The department is forced to change. Danielle donates most of the settlement to survivor organizations, to legal aid groups, to fund security cameras for women living alone. She keeps working nights. Still in trauma, still in the ICU. She also speaks now at nursing schools, police academies, community centers. She shows the footage. And she always ends with the same message. Stay calm, ask questions, document everything, call 911 if something feels wrong, and don't open the door just because someone has a badge. Bradley Mitchell files appeals. They're denied. He will likely never be released. And that doorbell clip? It's now used nationwide, not as entertainment, as instruction. Because the most important moment in this entire story wasn't the arrest or the trial or the sentence. It was a single decision made by an exhausted woman in pajamas to keep a door closed, and that decision saved lives. Danielle Moore never wanted to be part of a headline. She wasn't trying to expose a system. She wasn't trying to stop a predator. She was just trying to sleep after a brutal shift. What saved her wasn't strength or luck or inside knowledge. It was instinct. She noticed what didn't feel right. She asked questions when she was told not to. She documented everything. And most importantly, she didn't open the door. That single decision unraveled years of abuse hidden behind a badge. It exposed a pattern no one had been able to prove. It stopped a man who believed authority would protect him forever. Nothing about that night looked dramatic from the outside. No chase, no sirens, no warning, just a quiet hallway, a raised voice, and a door that stayed closed. Sometimes it's a knock on your door. And the decision you make in the next 10 seconds before you go, one question. If a police officer knocked on your door late at night and refused to explain why, would you open it? Type open or stay closed in the comments. And if this story changed the way you think about authority, safety, or your rights, make sure you're subscribed. Because stories like this don't just entertain, they teach you how to survive.